All right, looks like our next match is ready for us. We have Tone versus Marco here. Tone playing black and white Eldrazi and Taxes, and Marco is playing a very interesting Grixis control-ish brew with a lot of cards that I have to admit are new to me. Bunch of standard cards in here. I hope you know them, Jesper.
Oh, yes, I think he has a lot of expensive cards. I think he basically has a copy of every standard legal planeswalker in the Grixis color combination.
Well, last week we had a tournament here at the Game Force as well, where we played Modern, and Marco was there too. And I was skeptical at his list then. I'll have to admit I'm a little bit skeptical still, but he did manage to do pretty well in that tournament. Ended up playing top 8, and
It looks to be quite good against creatures, which is going to be fun against Tone Fokama's deck with all creatures.
yep. And it has a certain surprise factor, I assume, as well.
Yeah, probably. I think Tone's list is quite stock for what you can expect for Eldrazi and Texas deck. The Eldrazi come from Todnot Seer, I believe, and Eldrazi Displacer,
Mm-hmm.
as well as some copies of Wasteland Strangler that might be less known, but it can basically pick off small creatures in combination with other cards.
Tone opening the game with a Shambling Vents,
And
and Marco finding using a Bloodstained Mire to find a Blue and Black Shark right there. So I think at this point in the game, Tone, what would you put Marco on if you saw this?
well, Tapped Water Grave is not signature for the Dead Shadow opening,
Mm-hmm.
which would be my choice from those lands. And now all bets are off anyway with the Dragon Skull Summon.
Yep, quick life point duties. Thank you for reminding us. Let's see.
It's 19 to.
Currently have Marco at 19, and our scores at the bottom need to be updated as well. I see.
Let's say
Both
Tight
of-
Hollow Scholar. Oh, it's going to get. This is going to be not necessarily how you want it.
So what is happening here?
Well, Tony's playing a Tide Hollow Scholar that will basically Fiend Hunter a card from his opponent's hand, so
Mhm.
just keep it safe. But I believe Marco is killing it in response to the trigger, which with the old template of Tide Hollow Scholar will mean the creature will die and Tone will get to exile a card
From his hand without it coming back.
permanently, but that somehow didn't happen.
Might need to report that to one of our judges.
Maybe you can choose to not do it, I don't know. I think Yuri is getting confirmation from a judge. If you're allowed to not take a card with Tidal or Scholar. Oh, it seems like they are talking through the situation now. So recently they changed a lot of those cards with a new template. so that it mentions something like until it leaves play.
Appears the judges have looked at this, considered it a missed trigger, and told them to move on. Which means we're looking at the next turn right now, where Liliana of the Veil enters the battlefield.
And Marco is actually in good shape with his.
Well, Liliana in play is always pretty good.
In play. But I think also the life total has changed again.
Okay.
Because the Moment of Craving gains 2 life.
So Marco is at 21 right now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Which is considerable advantage over Fatal Push.
Is that a hypersonic dragon? I have to admit, I do not know these cards.
It will probably kill his opponent quickly. That's all you really need to know.
So there's a Cave of Koios being tapped for black, tone going down to 19.
I think that's a concealed courtyard, no?
Is it?
He covered it with the planes.
I'll leave him at 20 for now. Tone having to take a good hard look at Marco's hand.
Ooh la la, is that also on the list? Yes. Nicol Bolas. Oh, the hypersonic dragon got discarded. Then it probably won't come back.
So there's a sacrifice from the Liliana. And I'm going to have to look at you as to what Marco's playing here.
It's a Thief of Sanity. Basically, it steals cards from the top of your opponent's deck.
Okay.
Or something like to that effect. If Tone has a land here, he can, however, pressure the Liliana with his... that's a Cave of Koilos. So the other thing is definitely Concealed Courtyard.
Yep.
Or maybe this is a Fetid Pools.
I think so, yeah. I don't think this is a Cave of Koilos.
But that other thing is definitely a Concealed Courtyard.
Yep.
If he now attacks with the Shambling Vent into the Liliana, then Marco can either throw his Thief of Sanity in front or lose the Liliana. See, they hear me.
Thief of Sanity. So if you're like me and you don't know the Thief of Sanity, then Thief of Sanity is a 2/2 flyer on Marco's side of the board. That when it deals combat damage to a player, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's library. You exile one of them face down, put the rest into their graveyard. You may look at and cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type of color to cast that spell. So essentially, you're playing your opponent's deck with that card. In it goes.
Can you also play lands? Because I think that's all Marco is looking for.
You may look at and cast that card, so you can't play lands. Tone does take 2 from the... I forgot its name already.
Yeah, but actually, he also gained 2 from the Shambling Vent that has lifelink.
He did.
So...
Taking my duties seriously. A vintage staple according to chat.
No route, that doesn't help.
Marco appears to be reading his own Thief of Sanity here.
Well, he's looking at the 3 cards, and I believe he's looking at if it can play land or not. And I believe he has a path to exile now under that Thief of Sanity. This is another... well, this is basically a discard spell with Surveil 1. So it's like a Thoughtseize, only you don't lose the life. Which is, I believe, the recurring theme for Marco's deck. All his cards are modern staples with some mana added and then some life gain.
Which, to be fair, Grixis has had problems in the past playing Grixis control with life gain. I wouldn't necessarily say this is the way to fix it, but I mean, I can quite understand the reason behind building this deck.
It's always fun as a Grixis player to get turn 1 lava spiked. And know you're in for for a treat that round.
Yep. I mean, the Collective Brutality printing made it a little bit better for that deck, but I think it struggles still pretty heavily with
That
the
answer was a lot better than Vampiric Link. Even though Vampiric Link on Eidolon of the Great Revel was great. But yeah, I fear that that Thief of Sanity is actually going to do work this game.
Marco passing the turn back to Tone. If you're Tone, what are you looking for right now?
Well, you probably need to answer the Thief of Sanity because you can't beat your own deck as well as your opponents.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's basically you can have Path to Exile. I don't believe he has any cards in. How does that work with Wasteland Strangler and Thief of Sanity? Because I
assume the cards from Thief of Sanity. Let's see. That's a good question because they do get exiled, but
well,
looks like Mako is playing Tone's own path onto his Eldrazi Displacer. Which, like you said, it is pretty hard to beat your own deck with and your opponent at the same time. Marco digging for removal in Tone's deck instead of his own this time.
I think basically anything that allows you to draw 2 cards a turn is gonna be rough to beat if you're not ahead. And
yeah, Tone does not look ahead here. Going down to 18 now.
Thief of Sanity even allows for some selection, of course. Marco isn't looking to hit an Ether Vial.
Nope. He does find a Flicker Wisp there. A land and a third card that I'm finding hard to see, but the Flicker Wisp went under the Thief of Sanity here.
Could be anything. Oh, and here is another...
Is that Froska?
No, it's Ashok Nightmare Weaver or something. Basically, it is each cards from the top of your opponent's library, and then you get to put creatures into play with the minus ability, and the... I don't know why it says...
So the +2...
Why does it have a face down card underneath? I don't believe that should happen.
So this went up, exile the top 3 cards of target opponent's library, and then for the -X, you put a creature card with converted mana cost X exiled under your control. So the cards that do get exiled with Ashiok go underneath the Ashiok to be
But don't they
put
go
into
face
control.
up?
You might be correct. So Leon and Arbiter entering the battlefield on the side of Tone here. Yes, we do believe that the cards underneath Ashiok should be face up. We've just informed the judge and they will be getting to the table shortly. Leon and Arbiter came into play for Tone here.
Ooh, that's gonna be not very impactful, I fear.
I don't think that is a great card in this match either. Right, that has been corrected. Tone giving Ashiok another read.
Always a good time to read your opponent's cards. We can't really blame the guys for not knowing what the cards do.
I mean, I would
In this
have to
case.
read every card on Marco's side of the board in this match.
Well, that mountain doesn't have much text.
That is true. That is an easy read.
Also, yeah, Marco got ghost squatted while I was away.
Yep, he did lose one of his lands.
That makes the Leon and Arbiter a lot more impactful.
Yes.
But still, I don't think Tone is really ahead.
Flicker Wisp is decent here, I think. Making the Ashiok go down at least slightly. Ashiok does have a starting loyalty of 3, so he won't be able to kill it with the Arbiter just yet.
The Arbiter also has summoning sickness.
That is correct. So at the end of the turn, the Ashiok does come back into play.
Is Tone empty-handed?
Looks like it.
Marco is still...
He did finally find a blocker for the Thief of Sanity, though, in the Flicker Wisp, which is pretty good.
Yes, but... well, if the Thief attacks, that's definitely... I would trade. However, you also need to keep some pressure for the Ashiok.
That's true.
Marco is actually making the choice for him, I believe.
I do think you're happy to throw the Leonin Arbiter under the Thief of Sanity as well. Along with the Shambling Vent, that is 4 points of damage going towards the Ashiok. There is obviously the consideration to sending in the Flicker Wisp towards the Ashiok as well, presenting lethal to it just right now. Try and deal with it as soon as possible. I think that is what Tone is doing right now. Yep.
That gives one free attack to the
Thief.
thief again.
That is true. Marco electing not to block. The Shambling Vent is a 2/3 lifelink here, so Tone going back up to 20. The names are not aligned. You are completely correct, Niels. There we go. I'm trying. This is as good as it's gonna get, I feel.
I think Marco is a bit high.
That's true, Marco's name is a little bit higher. It's a little bit snappy, the overlay. Since this is all new for us, I fear this is going to be a little bit hard to get just right.
In the meantime, Marco managed to find a new third land.
Alright.
And he got some card under that Thief of Sanity, which I believe is a thought not here actually, but I'm not sure.
That seems to be a great card to cast from your opponent's deck.
Well, if you can find, but I think if he finds a fourth land, then he also unlocks a lot of cards in his hand anyway. So
that's true. So the Thief went in for 2. Tone didn't block, which leaves him at 18 again. I'm surprised by that, to be honest. Would you not block with the Flicker Wisp?
He didn't have a blocker because he...
Oh, he did attack with the Flicker Wisp, obviously.
Attacked the Flicker Wisp to kill the Ashiok. Now he's in for 7, so that presents a 3-turn clock.
Yep. Marco going down to 14.
And some life buffer again.
Yep, and Tone going back up to 20. Making a very nice stand against all of these cards that you have to read. Tone going back down to 18 with another trigger from the Thief. It appears Marco has not yet found his 4th land.
Oh, but he did find a Title Scholar that's going to get cast.
So take a
See
look
if-
at its opponent's hand, revealing a Flicker Wisp and Concealed Courtyard, I believe.
Yes. I think the relentless onslaught of
The Shambling Vent doing a lot of work in this game.
yeah, it's a good. Oh, it's not gonna do work this turn, so
Nope.
that must mean
I think he wants
there is something else.
to have a profitable block against the Tide Hollow Scholar, maybe, or he drew something. Ooh, Blade
He
Splicer.
drew something. He drew an army.
That's pretty good. Although Marco did have a Flicker Wisp underneath the Thief of Sanity that he can use to deal with the token.
Yeah.
In case he does not find the fourth land.
And that can then also trade with the opposing Flicker Wisp.
So
The Blade
Tone not
Splicer
blocking here.
is covered by the Title Scholar.
Oh, 16. Marco getting another trigger from the Thief of Sanity.
But at that point you can't really have the Title Scholar die anymore, because that presents another 3/1 flyer and another golem.
Yep, that's true.
So maybe the Arbiter will come in. Oh,
He does play the Flicker Wisp to deal with the golem here.
Marco jiggling some cards around.
So yeah, in this case, you would be looking for another path, or maybe a Flicker Wisp of your own, to even target the Scholar. Flicker Wisp of your own.
A lot of cards. I think you're basically looking for spells to press some sort of board advantage you might still have. But I believe... Oh, no.
In with
No.
everything. 2, 3, 6,
That's
8 points of damage, if I see that correctly.
aggressive attack.
A Blade Splicer definitely looking like a interesting creature to block here.
Maybe he values the Leonin Arbiter more,
Could be.
but then it's an easy block. Yeah. At least Marco is going down to 9, I believe, and Tone back up to 18.
And something did kill the Blade Splicer here.
Yeah, the Scholar ate the
The
Blade
Scholar
Splicer.
ate the Blade Splicer, yep.
The
So-
traitorous Tidal Scholar.
So Marco to 9.
I think I don't like that Blade Splicer attack in that case.
I didn't like that either, but we'll see.
But maybe it works out for him.
Don't play the land, I assume.
He played another Arbiter.
Ah, yeah.
I believe they actually stack. Ooh.
Tone getting hit again by the Thief of Sanity. I think that is something that Tone really needed to deal with earlier. I would have considered leaving up the Flicker Wisp, I think, to block that. But
I think Tone is trying to press the mana advantage he has on Marco, but Marco drew a really good card of Tone's deck here,
oof.
because that's going to eat
One of the
one of
Arbiters.
the Arbiters and then can trade with the other Arbiter.
Putting it planes back into the graveyard to give -3, -3. Yep, nice interaction between the Ashok and the Stolen
But
Strangling.
he's not attacking with the Title Scholar.
Yeah, which he could have.
I'm
I
curious.
don't think you want to give back the Flicker Wisp here, do you?
Oh, but if you're not blocking, then might as well get in for the 2 damage.
Yep.
Which ultimately not what's going to win him this game, probably. That will be finding a 4th land, but
Yeah, I think that still is Marco's priority.
he is doing well without it for some
That's true.
time now. Oh. That might be one of Tone's best draws.
Eldrazi displays you. Chad is asking why you leave the card underneath the Scholar. Well, the card needs to be there for because if the Scholar dies, then Tone gets it back. But I think you mean with the Wasteland Strangler, and that is something that Marco could have done. Just get the card underneath the Wasteland Strangler, the Flicker Wisp, make it go to the graveyard, and kill the Arbiter there.
I think that's actually from the Death and Texas, the Eldrazi and Texas side, the normal gameplay.
Yes, exactly.
Play or Scholar on turn 2. But, well,
yep.
Under Marco's control they do
slightly different things.
This is also going to hurt stealing creatures.
Yep.
Not good against Eldrazi displays.
That is true. Being able to blink your creatures back to your side of the board.
But I don't know if Marco... Oh, no, well, we'll get to learn if he actually has any cards in exile. Can we get the wording for...
A Tidehollow Scholar, maybe?
No, the Wasteland Strangler, please. Because well, as we
Wasteland Strangler does work with like your opponent's Ancestral Vision and that sort of stuff. So...
Okay. Yeah, but you need to... a card they own, it's right. So, when Wasteland Strangler enters the battlefield, you may put a card an opponent owns from exile into that player's graveyard. However, the cards under the Thief of Sanity are Tone's cards.
That is true.
So he can't exile those or the one under his opponent's Tidehollow Scholar.
That is true, and Marco's exile pile is empty at the moment. So, although he does get the Wasteland Strangler back, he doesn't quite get the option to destroy the Thief of Sanity with it as well. But I think Tone will be happy to have his creature back regardless.
Oh, yeah, but maybe it would have been nicer if you could, end of turn, steal the Tidehollow Scholar back first.
Yep, and then
get everything.
That's true, that's true.
But
I guess that option is still open for...
well, yeah, but it would require more...
There's another Wasteland Strangler, though.
That option is not...
might get rid of the Eldrazi Displacer here. Yep.
That's
there it goes.
Gonna die. That's really unfortunate for Tone. Well, yeah, what can you do against the opponent that has drawn 2 cards a turn for...
Half of them being from your deck. To be fair, Tone's deck is starting to look quite slim.
I think the board advantage will kill him before...
before decking himself.
Decking him will. Also not sure what the players are discussing here.
Neither am I.
Maybe why Marco has so many cards. But
1, 2, 3, 4.
Maybe it's 8?
7. He has 8 right now.
Is that it? Oh.
I think Marco's going to discard here. Yep.
Ooh. Is that the Elders Reborn we actually saw on turn... what is it? Turn 2?
Might very well be.
Scholar?
Might very well be.
Partial fix. Marco moest nog discarden. Dus dan heeft hij een warning gekregen. Dus
okay.
Ze gaan gelijk door.
Yep. Marco was a little bit late on his discard there, so he received a warning for having too many cards in hand, having to discard still.
Oh, joy.
Whew.
I'm guessing it's
the big
Shalai something.
Voice of Plenty.
It gives you and your other, at least creatures, hexproof, I believe.
Planeswalkers you control and other creatures you control have hexproof. With an activated ability that is actually quite good in this match too.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Oh, it's cost green.
Yes.
You are correct.
So unless Tone pulls some Greenland out of his, his deck. 2 of them, I believe. It's not gonna
Does he actually have green sources in his deck?
No.
I would have been surprised.
It's there just for the ability, for the first line of text. Oh, and it's also conveniently itself. It doesn't have hexproof.
So Grixis
Charm is going to give it -4/-4, killing the cute-looking angel, and that means Tone gets hit by the Thief of Sanity again.
Going down to 12 this time, I believe.
Oh, well. going to get interesting what actually kills Stone, but I'm pretty certain it's that Thief of Sanity. All by itself.
Yep. Not finding a way to deal with that just yet.
To be fair, well, it didn't work out with the Wasteland Strangler, but otherwise he only has the Path to Exiles,
That's true.
I think, outside of combat.
Don't attacking here with 7 points of damage total, I believe. 2 of them being lifelink. Marco debating whether he wants to get rid of some of the creatures on Tone's side, I believe. Having the option to block with the Scholar and the Strangler
If
here.
we're correct, he is at 9, so you could at least trade for the 3 power creature. And then try to win the slow game. I don't believe you want to give him the card under the Sculler back.
No, I think that would be hard to deal
It
with.
would have been
however.
nice to trade with your 2/2 Sculler with no card underneath.
That is true. So, taking 4 Marco here, going down to 5. Tone getting another 2 back to 14.
So Tone is actually still
He's hanging in
still
there.
in this,
Hanging in there.
but I believe that still.
Thalia coming from the top might be relevant here as well.
I think. Oh, it's definitely relevant.
Having the first strike and the ability to make instants and sorceries cost 1 more.
It makes that Liliana that Marco got there just enough cheaper.
Yeah, non-creature spells
However,
costing 1 more.
That's gonna be a good blocker.
The Blade Splicer from Tone's deck coming in on Marco's side of the board. I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with the Thief of Sanity this game.
it might single-handedly win win the game here. The Thief of Sanity is still going on the offensive.
Yep. Getting Tone down to 12, and Marco taking another look at the top 3 cards underneath Tone's deck.
Really, if that card could have taken lands,
I think this would have been a very
it would have been
one-sided
over.
game if it would have been able to take the lands.
It's admirable how Tone is hanging in this. Oh,
We have a judge call, it seems.
I heard him here, so
Tone asking for some help.
I think we are how many meters and a thick concrete wall away. But,
Yep. I didn't bring a good deck. Let me play yours. Looks like it.
oh, it's Marco that needed to discard again.
Selval.
So we have a Scholar here from the side of Tone taking a look at Marco's hand. I think he's just looking for information at this point. I don't think he expects to win this game anymore, and he's trying to get a feel for what he's up against.
He is not that far behind. If you look at that hand from Tone, he can't cast any of those cards.
That's true. The Liliana being the closest, the thing he's closest to
Well,
casting.
actually, the dragons.
The dragons get cast as
The
well.
dragon stingy. What's it called? I mean the artifact. It's a dragon's horde. I think that makes mana or something, and maybe draws a card.
But also costs 1 extra.
Yeah, so it's basically just taking the castable removal spell. But the 3/3 golem is holding his team off.
Dragon's Horde is a 3 mana artifact that gets a gold counter that you can remove for any color of mana.
And
So
it
if he
draws
does
a card
get-
when it comes into play or something.
You get to use the gold counter for either a card or the mana.
Either.
Pick one.
Can you add gold counters?
Not that I can see. But that might be in some other area of Marco's deck. More creatures hitting the bin for Tone. I believe that's one card in his deck left.
Only one?
It looks like only one card.
But then that Thief of Sanity went, oh no, there's one underneath. But that doesn't matter much. Probably the next hit from the Thief will
kill him. So he's going down to 10 here.
be it.
Chat did correct me. You can tap it for a mana always, and you can tap it and remove a gold counter for a card.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Oh, and it gets
What?
it gets a gold counter when it enters.
Ah, that makes
Right.
makes more sense.
Yep. Wasteland Strangler coming in here for Tone.
Oh, and he finally had a card in exile.
So exiling the Liliana to get rid of the Scholar, to get
him
his
back
Flicker Wisp back to deal with the token, presumably.
the Flicker Wisp. But if he kills the token, he's not coming in with the...
Can you swing for lethal here?
Yeah, not through the...
2, 4, 6.
not through the
blocking
blocker.
1 means Marco goes to 1 if he swings with everything here. And then assumably Tone is going to be decked next turn.
Well, he now has a blocker for that Thief of Sanity.
That is true.
And he still has a card in his
That is
his
true.
library. That Blade Splicer can't trade for anything.
Marco
Oh.
does have, I was going to say, quite a few number of cards. Yep. So the path getting rid of the blocker here means Tone will deck himself in the next turn.
Oh.
That was quite an exciting game, to be honest. I did not expect Thief of Sanity to do that much work.
Yeah, that looked. We basically didn't see any cards from Marco's deck also, so
No, that's
we
true.
will have those for the next games.
Although Tone did get to look at Marco's hand pretty late in the game, so I feel like he has some sort of idea as to what kind of cards are in Marco's deck. So this would be a 1-0 for Marco at the moment. Grixis Mill. Well, it did appear that Marco won like that this game. But I feel like if Marco had a little bit extra mana to his disposal in that game, this would have been a pretty different sight for us to see.
Turn out, Strip Mine makes for exciting games of Magic.
That is true.
Who would have known?
That is true.
Um,
Looking to sideboard here, if you're Tone, what,
well,
what are you doing?
I would first look at my pre-prepared sideboard guide, then find the nearest trash can.
Yep.
He actually has some cards like he has the standard cards like Rest in Peace and Stony Silence that make the white sideboard strong, but I don't believe they do much here.
Nope.
So I'm not expecting those to come in. He basically, what we say, lost to that Thief of Sanity.
To the Thief of Sanity, yeah.
So that could prompt him to bring in Fatal Pushes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they are good enough because he also saw those Nicol Bolasses that also die to Fatal Push as long as you can get Revolt,
Mm-hmm.
of course,
Mm-hmm.
which shouldn't be too difficult. The main thing I'm looking at are 2 Gideon's Ally of Zendikar that are, well, somewhat hard to answer threats that really impact the game.
I don't think they are very hard to answer for Marco in this specific case, though, because we do see Vraska's Contempt
That can exile a Planeswalker, yes.
in Marco's list, and I believe
But
Tone has seen them
That's only a
in
1
his
for 1.
hand. That's true. That's true.
At the same mana cost.
Flicker Wisp.
So I don't dislike that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Vraska's Contempt does deal with it like a 1 for 1. I'm thinking if you're Tone in this game, don't you just want to be like the hyper aggressive deck? I think the main plan of Death and Taxes, where you go Arbiter into Destroy Your Land, is what he's looking to do here with Athalia, maybe. Has been pretty good against control decks, I believe.
Yeah, that also works, but those games you will win anyway. You don't have to take out those cards.
No, obviously. I'm looking at Marco's sideboard here, and there are a couple of things that come into certain matchups, like Grafdigger's Cage, Dreadbores, Fulminator Mages, and Counter Squalls that I don't think are very relevant in this game.
Well, the Dreadbore can kill a creature.
That's
or
true.
that sideboard Gideon, but
That's true.
maybe it's cheap enough to. I mean, Terminate has been a modern staple for some time.
True.
Or well, playable in modern.
It does beat his own Frasca's Condemns when it comes to being low to the ground interaction in this matchup, which I think he is looking for when you're facing up against Athalia. You don't want to be spending 4 mana to kill a creature.
5.
Exactly. We have a question about time in the round. We started, I believe, at about just over half an hour ago. So I believe we have roughly 20 to 25 minutes left.
Are
in
you
the round.
sure we have the score correct?
Pretty
Because
sure
I
it's-
believe Marco got to start off this game.
That looks like it.
Maybe
I
we
am
had
quite
life
confused.
totals incorrect.
I'm
you got
quite
killed on
confused.
that,
Yeah, you
that big turn.
might be correct. That it does look like Marco started off this game, which means we did miss one of the attacks from Tone.
Or maybe it
Apologies
is
for that.
just Tone's.
It does appear that Marco conceded the first game during the big attack from Tone. I have to admit I'm a little bit confused at that one, but
Ja, hij zei net niet. Dus daarmee maak ik op dat hij het net niet had.
Tone leading off strong here then with a turn 2 Arbiter. Oh, Marco just having the blood crit in hand though.
Should keep the life totals updated.
Yeah, we should. So this is
18.
we're missing a lot of these.
Ik ben even naar de supermarkt steeds, hè. Tot zo.
Let's see. So that's, I believe 18. Yeah, the first blood crypt coming into play tapped. Going down to 16 now from the Leonian and Arbiter. And the Ghost Quarter targeting the blue-black land there.
And the Grixis Charm killing the Arbiter in response. Tone just trying to tap his opponent out, I think, with the Ghost Quarter.
Interesting that the Grixis Charm didn't kill the Leonian Arbiter before damage there. But
I think he wanted to keep his mana up, take a little bit of damage.
and just see what's going to happen.
Also, if you try to Grixis Charm it with the Ghost Quarter up, you're gonna lose the land.
Yeah, but the Ghost Quarter was played after damage
Oh,
in the second main phase.
then
Marco finding an island here.
I don't know.
I think Tone would love to see, I don't know, like Athalia or something else hit the board here, but
Well,
doesn't
anything.
look like he has anything.
Then I don't. What was he Ghost Quartering for? Because even if Marco doesn't have the removal spell, he can just tap 2 lands
Yeah,
to counter the.
Interesting. there's
Well-
Ashiok again.
That's probably going to run away with this game. Cards going face up underneath it this time.
Yep.
Tone with the third land and a Kambal.
Which is a decent card, I guess, in this matchup.
Yeah, I believe it triggers on cheap spells.
I think it's just instants and sorceries. Let me check that for you.
Because in that case, Marco has a lot of expensive cards.
On non-creature spells is when it triggers.
Oh, any.
So we do have a trigger here, making sure Marco loses 2 life. Going down to 14, and Tone going up to 22. But it did get dealt with quickly.
That Ashok is doing work. I believe Ashok also has an ultimate of exiling hands and graveyards of your opponent. We actually see an interesting sideboard card from Tone there that got exiled by the Ashok. That's his one of Bird and Forge Tender.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think he brought in anticipation of some red sweepers. Which Marco has some of, I believe.
I don't see any of the standard red
The
sweepers.
Volcanic Fallout. He has 1 main and 1 side.
Ah, yes.
Also, Marco now dropping all of the sweet cards.
Yep, there's the
with the
Dragon's Horde, I believe.
The dragon thingy, and the Arch of Araska.
There's the Dragon's Horde
And
coming
now
in.
a Blade Splicer to turn on the City's Blessing. With that I had made some bets on people getting the City's Blessing today. This... I believe this is going to be hard to win for Tone, but he clawed back in that other game, so...
I would be, Oh, that's a handshake. Casting a card from under Ashiok.
Oh,
Yep.
that might be...
That's a minus ability. That is a minus ability from the Ashiok. The Ashiok is currently at 6. Which does imply to me that he used it, but I think Marco is
got his 3rd warning this match, which means
he can no longer continue this game.
pack them in.
That is
Rough end for him there.
yeah, that's a rough way to lose that match. Although to be fair, this is a competitive tournament and you are supposed to know how your deck works.
It's all within the rules, but it's
Never fun.
never pretty.
We'd prefer to see them play Magic.
Game los uitgedeeld.
Alright, one of our judges just came to our table and told us that Marco received a game loss for casting a card from under Ashiok with mana.
Without using the ability.
That is what that implied to us as well. We are getting more information as we speak. We have one of our judges here that is going to tell us a little bit more.
So what happened during the game, Marco Kiewit accumulated 3 game rule violations, so twice for not discarding from 8 to 7 for his cleanup. The last game rule violation was for him attempting to cast a creature from under Ashiok using mana instead of activating Ashiok's mana loyalty ability. And if you get 3 or more game rule violations during a tournament, we upgrade that to game loss.
Okay. Thank you for
Thanks.
the additional information. Right. So the 3rd game rule violation for Marco leading to a loss. Yeah, sure.
You can
And we have Tone with us
ask Tone what happened there.
right now. Going to switch over to our different scene. Let's see if we can get some video here as well. Coming in. All right. Well, welcome, Tone. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about that match? What happened?
First game went on forever. I think we ended game one with I had one card in my library, and he was down on 1 life only, so I managed to grind it out. And the second game he didn't have enough time because he's playing a very much mid-range deck. The really nice build, by the way, with nickel bolas, etc. But he wasn't able to grind it out, and he made his third mistake of the match.
Yeah.
And he
Got upgraded to a game loss.
Yeah.
Yep. What did you? We were talking about that first game, and we thought that he would have you on the mill there.
Yeah.
I believe we did miss something apparently, but we saw him concede that game, and we were both looking at each other like, "Wait, I thought he had the win there. I thought he could mill you out with the thief, and then
I think he missed. He could have milled me out for 3 more cards, so then he would have automatically won the game.
Yeah.
But I think he got up in a mixture of his thought process and decided to stay on the aggro program, and my lifelinker kind of won me the game there.
Yeah, Shambling Van did a lot of work that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did. You mentioned his deck. You said it was a sweet build. What do you think of some of the cards that you saw? We were always in Modern. We're a little bit critical of some cards, maybe.
I would never.
Demanding
I would
low
never
mana
play
costs.
I saw the mana curve, and it's really high. So game 1 he only had 3 lands, but he had like 4, 5, 6 drops. It was just too much.
Yeah.
So when you get mana screwed, you lose to your own deck.
Which is obviously what the Death and Taxes deck is good at. Mana screwing your opponents.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, anything you would do differently in a future game against this match? Anything you thought you could have done better? Or?
Think about my gameplay a little bit harder, and I made some small mistakes in game 1 that I would not do anymore. It's the first time I'm playing the deck now, so.
You're playing as the Death and Taxes deck, you mean, or is it your first time playing against the Grixis mid-range deck?
Either way.
both of them.
First time.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on the win.
Thanks.
And best of luck in the rest of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck.
Yep, thanks.
All right. That means that was it for round 2 of the tournament. We'll be taking a short break, and I'll inquire for when the next round is scheduled to start and put that up on screen.